The crisp autumn air filled the soccer field, the golden light of the setting sun casting long shadows on the freshly cut grass. Parents lined the sidelines, their cheers mingling with the occasional whistle blow and the distinct thud of a soccer ball meeting a cleat. Among them stood Barron Trump, tall for his age, his face flushed with determination as he adjusted the red MAGA hat perched firmly on his head. It was a small statement, a personal one, but it carried weight, more than he realized. Barron was no stranger to attention. Being the son of a former president came with a spotlight he had grown accustomed to over the years. Yet on the field, he wasn't Barron Trump, the president's son. He was just Barron, the team's center forward, known for his sharp instincts and relentless drive. Soccer was his sanctuary, the one place where the world's opinions and politics seemed to fade into the background. At least, that's what he thought. The tension began subtly, almost imperceptibly, as the team gathered for practice. Coach Miller, a stern yet fair leader who had been with the team for years, called the players into a huddle. His eyes swept over them but lingered on Barron's hat. There was a flicker of something, disapproval, frustration. Barron couldn't quite tell, but he noticed. "Barron," Coach Miller said, his voice calm but firm, "we need to talk after practice." The words hung in the air, weighted and uncertain. Barron nodded, trying to focus on the drills, but his mind raced. Had he missed an assignment? Was there an issue with his playing? He ran harder, kicked with more precision, determined to leave no room for critique. By the time practice ended, sweat dripped from his brow, and he approached the coach with a mixture of dread and curiosity. What happened next would change everything. Standing just outside the field, away from the parents and the rest of the team, Coach Miller folded his arms and said, "Barron, I've always respected you as a player and as a person, but that hat, it's becoming a distraction. It's not about politics, it's about the team. I'm asking you to leave it at home." Barron felt the words hit him like a sudden gust of wind. A distraction. To him, the hat wasn't about politics. It was a connection to his family, a nod to his father's legacy. He glanced down at the red cap in his hand, then back at the coach, his expression a mix of confusion and defiance. "I'm sorry, Coach," Barron said, his voice steady, "but I don't think it's fair to ask me to leave it at home. It's just a hat." Coach Miller's lips pressed into a thin line. "It may be just a hat to you, but to others, it's a statement. And I can't have statements dividing this team. If you can't agree to this, I'm afraid I'll have to bench you or remove you from the team altogether." Barron stared at him, stunned. Soccer was more than a game to him. It was his passion, his escape. To be removed over a piece of clothing felt unreal, unjust. But before he could respond, Coach Miller turned and walked away, leaving Barron standing alone, clutching the hat as if it were a lifeline. Word spread quickly, as it always does in a small, tight-knit community. The whispers among parents, the murmurs in school hallways. It didn't take long for the story to explode. Some sided with the coach, arguing that politics had no place on the field. Others rallied behind Barron, seeing his removal as an overstep, a violation of personal expression. But what Barron did next was what no one saw coming. Instead of retreating into the shadows, Barron decided to take a stand, not with words, but with actions. He knew he couldn't fight this battle alone, and so he began reaching out. First to friends, then to strangers, finding allies in the most unexpected places. His decision to rise above the conflict and channel his frustration into something constructive would send ripples through the entire community, challenging their perceptions and forcing them to confront their own biases. As the days unfolded, the focus shifted from the hat to the larger question of unity, freedom, and the importance of standing up for what you believe in. And by the time Barron's journey reached its peak, the community would be forever changed. But the road ahead was far from easy. Barron's resolve would be tested, his friendship strained, and the weight of public scrutiny would bear down on him like never before. Still, he was determined to show that sometimes, even the smallest acts of defiance can spark something far greater. What exactly did Barron do that left the entire community shaken? How did one voice stand against what he believed was an injustice lead to a movement that transcended the soccer field? Stay tuned to find out. It's a story you won't want to miss. The days following Barron's removal from the team were anything but quiet. Social media erupted as the story caught fire, fueled by the polarized climate of the world beyond their small community. Local news picked up the story, turning Barron into a reluctant symbol of a larger debate about personal expression and the intersection of politics in everyday life. At school, his classmates whispered in corners or stared as he walked past, unsure whether to offer support or keep their distance. Some admired his courage, others thought he was just causing trouble. Barron, however, kept his focus. He wasn't interested in the noise or the headlines. What bothered him most wasn't just being kicked off the team, it was the principle. How could something as simple as wearing a hat, a personal choice, be enough to take away something he loved? It gnawed at him, pushing him to act. But Barron wasn't one to lash out. Instead, he began thinking of ways to respond that could make a real impact. The first step came with a conversation at the dinner table. Melania and Donald, his parents, had heard the story, of course. While his father's instinct was to jump into the fight, Barron asked them to let him handle it. He wanted this to be his battle, his choice. His mother, always the steady voice of reason, encouraged him to take the high road. Let your actions speak for you, she told him, her voice calm but firm. People respect those who lead by example. Barron took her advice to heart. The next day, he called a meeting with a few of his closest friends, including some of his former teammates. Sitting in a quiet corner of the local library, he laid out his idea. "I don't want to argue with the coach or anyone else," he began. "But I think this is bigger than just me. What happened to me could happen to anyone who chooses to express themselves in a way others don't agree with. I want to show that we can come together, no matter our differences." The plan was ambitious. Barron wanted to organize a community soccer event, a place where kids of all backgrounds, beliefs, and abilities could play the game without fear of judgment. It wasn't about winning or competition, it was about unity. His friends were hesitant at first, unsure if people would even show up, but Barron's determination was contagious. "If we can get even a few people to join us, it'll be worth it," he said, his eyes filled with resolve. Word spread quickly as Barron and his friends began reaching out to classmates, neighbors, and local organizations. Flyers went up around town, and a few supportive parents helped promote the event on social media. The response was surprising. People from all walks of life, some who had never even met Barron, reached out to show their support. Donations poured in for equipment, food, and decorations. Local businesses offered to sponsor the event. Even a rival soccer coach volunteered to referee the games. But not everyone was on board. Coach Miller remained silent, refusing to comment publicly about the situation. Some parents questioned whether Barron was trying to stir up trouble or undermine the team. A few of his former teammates felt torn, worried that supporting Barron might damage their relationship with the coach or jeopardize their own spots on the team. Tension simmered beneath the surface, threatening to overshadow the positive momentum. Despite the challenges, Barron stayed focused. On the day of the event, the soccer field was transformed. Colorful banners lined the fences, and the air buzzed with excitement as families and kids of all ages arrived. Barron stood at the center of it all, welcoming everyone with a wide smile. For the first time in weeks, he felt a sense of peace. This wasn't about him anymore. It was about something bigger. The games began, and for a while, it seemed as if all the tension in the community had melted away. Kids laughed and cheered, parents mingled on the sidelines, and the field became a symbol of what could happen when people came together despite their differences. Barron played in one of the games, his love for soccer shining brighter than ever. But as the sun began to set, a familiar figure appeared on the sidelines. Coach Miller stood quietly, watching the scene unfold. He hadn't said a word to Barron since their confrontation, and his presence sent a ripple of unease through the crowd. Barron noticed him, but instead of looking away, he jogged over, his heart pounding. "Coach," Barron said, catching his breath. "Thanks for coming." The coach looked at him, his expression unreadable. "I wasn't sure if I should," he admitted, "but I wanted to see for myself what this was all about." Barron nodded, unsure of what to say next. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken words. Finally, Coach Miller sighed and glanced at the field. "You've done something remarkable here, Barron. I may not agree with everything, but I can't deny the impact you've made." The words took Barron by surprise. Before he could respond, Coach Miller added, "This doesn't mean I've changed my mind about the team rules. But maybe there's more to this than I realized." The exchange left Barron with mixed emotions, relief, hope, and a lingering uncertainty about what would come next. As the event wrapped up and the crowd began to disperse, Barron couldn't shake the feeling that the story was far from over. What Coach Miller's words meant for the future of the team, and for Barron himself, remained unclear. But for now, he had proven something important, that one person's stand, however small, could bring an entire community together. As the weeks passed after the event, the buzz around the community soccer day continued to ripple through the town. People spoke about how it brought everyone together in a way they hadn't experienced in years. Barron became somewhat of a local hero, not for making a political statement, but for showing how compassion and determination could bridge divides. Yet beneath the surface, the tension with the team lingered, unresolved. Barron stayed away from the soccer practices, knowing the rules hadn't changed. He missed the camaraderie, the thrill of playing with his team, and the feeling of working toward a shared goal. But he also knew he couldn't compromise his beliefs. Despite everything, he respected Coach Miller and hoped their relationship might find a way forward. Then, unexpectedly, an opportunity presented itself. The regional youth soccer championships were approaching, and Barron's team was in need of a skilled center forward. They'd struggled in recent matches without him, and whispers began circulating about whether Barron might be invited back to help the team. It wasn't just about winning. The boys on the team missed having Barron as part of their family. Coach Miller was torn. He'd always prided himself on being a strong leader, someone who stood firm on his principles. But as he replayed the events of the past few weeks, he began to question whether his hardline stance had done more harm than good. Watching the way Barron handled himself during the community event left an impression on him that he couldn't shake. One crisp Saturday morning, Coach Miller showed up at Barron's house unannounced. When Barron opened the door, he was surprised to see his former coach standing there, looking slightly uncomfortable. "Can we talk?" Coach Miller asked. Barron nodded and invited him in. They sat at the kitchen table, and for the first time since their confrontation, the coach spoke openly. "Barron, I've had some time to think about everything. I realize now that maybe I was too quick to draw a line. You've shown more maturity and leadership than I expected, and I see how much you care about this team and this community." Barron listened intently, unsure where the conversation was headed. "I stand by the idea that the team should focus on unity, Coach continued, "But I also realize unity doesn't mean erasing individuality. If you're willing to come back, I'd like to have you on the team again, hat or no hat." The words hung in the air for a moment, and Barron felt a wave of relief mixed with a deep sense of accomplishment. "I appreciate that, Coach," Barron said sincerely. "I'd love to come back. But I want you to know it was never about causing division. I just wanted to be myself." Coach Miller nodded, a small smile forming. "I see that now." When Barron returned to the field for practice, the atmosphere was electric. His teammates greeted him with cheers and pats on the back, genuinely happy to have him back. The moment was bigger than just soccer. It was a testament to the power of understanding and compromise. The regional championships arrived, and the team played with a renewed energy. Barron, wearing his signature red MAGA hat during warm-ups and tucking it safely away when the game began, scored the winning goal in the final match. As the crowd erupted in celebration, it wasn't just about the trophy. It was about the journey that brought them there. In the end, Barron's story wasn't just about a hat or a soccer team. It was about standing up for what you believe in while finding ways to bring people together. It was a reminder that even in the face of division, understanding and kindness could prevail. The community learned something valuable too. Sometimes the boldest acts aren't the loudest. They're the ones that inspire others to look beyond their differences and see each other as people first. As Barron stood on the podium with his team, holding the championship trophy high, he glanced toward the sidelines where Coach Miller stood, clapping proudly. In that moment, it was clear that this wasn't just a victory for the team. It was a victory for everyone.